Are you ready to elevate your auditing skills and deliver real value to your clients? In this episode of Lead the Standard, I sit down with Kevin Sanders, an ISO management system auditor and business strategist, to break down the formula for conducting a successful audit. With experience in over 1,000 organisations, Kevin shares his 4 actionable steps that ensure your audits are not just compliant, but impactful. If you're looking to transform your audits from routine checklists into powerful business enhancing experiences, this episode is for you. Tune in to hear Kevin's expert tips and walk away with practical advice you can apply in your very next audit. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lead the Standard. I'm Jackie Stapleton, and you're tuning into episode 17, Successful Audit Formula. As usual, this podcast is an extension of our weekly Lead the Standard LinkedIn newsletter, which was edition 64, if you want to check that out. This week, I am joined by a very special guest, Kevin Sanders. Kevin is a dog lover, a dad, and a business enthusiast who has been described by many companies as one of the best ISO management system auditors and business strategists in the country. With experience from working with, in, and around over 1,000 organisations, Kevin blends his passion for quality, business, and family to help owners build thriving businesses while gaining more time, money, and peace of mind. That's a hell of an introduction, Kevin.
Isn't it? Yeah. Who came up with that?
Do you think you can add any more to that? And welcome, by the way, welcome.
It's amazing to be here and have this kind of discussion with you, Jackie, because I just love talking about business, and I could do it for hours and hours, even though we've only got 1 hour. I'll keep it contained. But look, I'm a simple person, right? I'm not overly complicated. I grew up in the bush. I didn't grow up with huge amounts of technology, but when you don't have all of those things making life easy, you figure out how to make things easy.
Yes.
and you make it as practical as possible. So I like to bring that kind of philosophy
Ooh,
in,
yes.
and I find that comes through a lot in how I work, and trying to keep things nice and lighthearted and energy focused and relevant without it going boring, which I find a lot of face it audits can do.
Yes, there's a balance there, isn't there? So I suppose I did put something here. I had a thought, well, how did I meet Kevin and why is he here? And I know that I have the running joke. I don't know how you feel about it, Kevin, but I met Kevin on a blind LinkedIn date. That's what I'm going to call it.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. Absolutely.
So I got a message from Kevin on LinkedIn, as I do from many people. I didn't know who Kevin was, but Kevin said, oh, let's meet for a coffee. And I think we went back and forth for a little bit. I think there was some holidays in the middle and whatever sort of delayed it. But we eventually met for a coffee. I think the running joke was, because I had to tell the team, oh, I'm meeting someone for coffee. I don't know who he is. His name's Kevin.
His name's Kevin, just a random bloke. Yeah.
Just some random, let's actually think what I said. I said, just some random bloke that messaged me on LinkedIn. So
it's a bit, they probably think it's a little bit strange, but look, here we are. So obviously it wasn't.
I know. Well, I knew you worked in the same industry as me, because of course you can see all of that. So I was very comfortable with that. So of course, when we met, we talked for hours and hours about quality, about businesses, about systems. Like, it was really exciting, wasn't it, Kevin?
It was great. Yeah. Like, I always walk away from these conversations with something, but rarely do I walk away with huge amounts of energy and excitement and just sort of coming across someone else who has the same sort of lens on this industry that I do and that I'm writing about. And it's nice to be able to share and compare notes and validate that what I'm talking about, it's actually got some depth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that passion, I guess, that I suppose led us down this path. We have caught up for coffee again since then. We've spoken on the phone, and we've gotten to this point where you shared or contributed to that news article. So the newsletter, I think I said it was 64. That was our condensed version, by the way, because Kevin put together this huge draft. And as Kevin said, it was just all of the stuff coming out of his brain. And we condensed it into the newsletter that we're going to expand on now. It was that passion and that, I think, more that practical concept, which you mentioned earlier as well, which I really sort of, aligned to and got excited about. So that's what's brought us here, and us inviting Kevin to write that article and share it. And of course, because we do our podcast based on our newsletters, now we have an awesome opportunity to talk to you and expand on it. So are you ready?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Okay. So Kevin is going to share his 4 actionable steps for a successful audit formula. This is exciting. Okay. So the 4 actionable, I'll say that again. The 4 actionable steps for a successful audit formula are: 1, nail the opening meeting; 2, ask beautiful questions; 3, conduct a valuable audit; and 4, closing the loop. I love that continual improvement. Yep, that cycle. So I'm going to hand it over to Kevin as we start breaking these down. I'm going to do a little bit of background for you all, and then Kevin's just going to go to town and we're going to chat about it in a controlled manner, hopefully. Maybe not. There may be some excitement, passion come out, but that's all good. That's what we're here for.
I've only had 1 coffee this morning, Jackie, so I shouldn't be too bad, but yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right. So the first step for a successful audit formula is nailing the opening meeting. And you said, Kevin, that it sets the tone and the tempo for, I suppose, the rest of the audit. There's a few elements that you wrote about with regards to that nailing the opening meeting. So you made a point in the article about coming in relaxed, clear-minded, ready to connect with the client, sets the stage for that successful audit. So remember, like how you present yourself will influence how your client feels. Oh, that's an interesting point. If you're calm, they will be too. So I'm going to go calm now. If you're calm, they will be too. The tone you set in the opening meeting paves the way for the rest of the audit process. You broke this into 3 separate parts as well. You said humility and approachability. So you said auditors should avoid developing a power complex. Instead, work with the client, prioritize their time, and maintain respect for their processes. The second part, you said, bring energy and personality. So clients often appreciate auditors who bring personality and energy into the room. So it makes the process feel less like an interrogation, you said, and more like a collaboration. I like that. And finally, you said that you need to set clear intentions. So establishing that the audit, again, is a collaborative process, not an interrogation, as you said earlier. So it's a collaborative process from the outset. Like, it helps in building a strong relationship right from the beginning with the client. So there was a lot of light bulb moments in there for me, and stuff that I have come across. I love that. Avoid developing a power complex. I've seen that. That whole energy, Kevin, I've seen that. Like, if you're calm, they're calm. I've actually had the opposite. I've had the client go, oh, like she was really hypo. And I actually found that I was getting hypo as the auditor. And I was going, and then I realized, I thought, okay, Jackie, you can change this for her and you. And then I just made myself calm down because her energy was rubbing off on me.
Mm.
So I brought my energy down, not negatively, but calmly, and it helped her. So that influence, our influence is huge as auditors, isn't it?
Look, I've got to. This is the most critical part for me. Is that if we don't start off on the right foot, Jackie, it does not go well. It becomes a really hard, difficult, and unnecessarily hard and difficult, and uh, it's a potentially distasteful process. And that companies are paying a lot of money for this stuff, so they want
Yeah.
to get value out of it. And so when to start an audit, and for any auditors out there, I talk to a lot of auditors, and I always say the audit starts before you walk in. So the whole idea of leadership is being able to influence other people and bring them along on a journey. That's what leadership is. And so your job as an auditor isn't to go in and just pick up a standard with all these requirements and show me this, show me this, show me this. Your job is to take the client on a journey through their business, through the eyes of the standard, but with a view of being able to bring that value to them so they can walk away going, that was bloody good. And so taking a deep breath before you're going in and knowing that they're probably nervous. I'm nervous. Hey, it's all good. That's natural. That's okay. But then just being able to walk in and go, hey, I've got your back. I'm here with you. I'm not here to audit you. I'm here to audit with you. And I want to
Yeah.
make sure that you get value out of this. And when you can sort of simmer down that energy, people kind of relax into the conversation, and then you roll into a bit of an opening meeting, which I'm happy to role play, like just sort of give you my official spiel. It's pretty different, I think, from the
Okay,
feedback.
that would be good.
Um, and usually that sort of sets the tone moving forward. So
Yep.
we'll do the spiel now. How about that?
Okay.
So
Yep.
usually when I walk in, I'll sort of I won't just be loud and walk in and throw my things around. I always sort of take the time to look around, and I'll always try and pick something, a picture on the wall, or I'll see the policies on the wall, or I'll pick something that I can divert the energy away from me just quickly, real quick. So when I'm with the client, I'll go, "What's that? Where did you get that painting from? That's cool.
Mhm.
Is that did someone here paint that, or did you buy that? Like, what's the story there?" And then see, I can just sort of roll into it from there. And then we sit down. I get my laptop out, and then I'll roll into a bit of an opening meeting, and I'll say, "Look, yes, my name's Kevin Sanders. As you may have noticed, it is the same last name as the famous Colonel. You may be wondering by looking at me if I might be a descendant of the Colonel, and I can tell you it's actually really interesting. I'm not. Uh, but look, my dad actually took a lot of pleasure in when I was a kid in convincing me that every time we were going to KFC, I would be eating the fruits of the labor of the forefathers that came before us in the Sanders clan, and that I was a descendant. But then I had that light bulb moment when I was probably 8 years old, where all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't related to the Colonel, and then
No,
I haven't eaten
Dad.
KFC since. But look, and then I'll sort of say, see, I can kind of just I can become the butt of the joke there. I can almost sort of lean
Mhm.
into just
Mhm.
relax things. People gonna get a bit of a laugh out of it, and then I'll say, you know what? I actually discovered that KFC, that someone discovered the secret herbs and spices recipe in an attic in America somewhere, and they sold it back to KFC for $40 million. Would you believe $40 million? I haven't seen a penny of it, and so I'm feeling a little ripped off. But hence, here I am, and we get to do an audit now. So, and so see, and then now I can sort of roll into an opening meeting. The client goes, "Oh, this guy's not so bad," and then we're into it, and I'll say, "Look, I need to point out that you go through the usual stuff. So yeah, here's the standards, and here's what we're doing. Here's what I'm seeing as a bit of a plan. Blah 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 blah. You go through that usual kind of thing, but then I'll say, look, I'm actually not here to audit you. I'm here to audit with you. This is an opportunity for you to get a return on your investment because I know you pay a lot of money for this. So I want you to get the most out of it. I'm going to ask you in a second, what would you like to walk away from this process with? What are the things that are just burning in your mind that you would like to go through and get some feedback or get some insight or just get a third party view on something, a particular process, a document, a system, a strategy, a plan, whatever that is for you? Let's write it down and let's make sure we get to it while we're here, because that's important. I want to make sure you get
Great
value.
question.
So
Yeah.
see, what would you like to get out of this? Now I can sort of turn it back around and say, and get that out of them. Look, they'll, if they're comfortable enough, they'll share their sort of headaches and the pain points. You sometimes have to dig. Yeah, what else? Yeah, what else? Oh, what else? We'll definitely get to that thing. That's important. What else would you like to get out of this? And when you dig far enough, you'll get to the thing that really matters to them. And when you uncover that, then that's usually where you'll find that there might be a non-conformance as an auditor, but at least you know now how to frame it as an improvement opportunity, not as a non-conformance later on down the track, which is what we'll
Yeah.
talk about in steps down. The other thing I'll usually say is we'll go through the findings. Here's a minor non-conformance or a major non-conformance. I'm not here to raise non-conformances. I'm here to raise improvement findings for
Mm-hmm.
you. In the
Mm-hmm.
report, they'll be called a non-conformance, but we're going to do it in improvement style. And then we've got observations, which are just your opportunities for improvement. You don't actually have to respond to those. You can tell me to get stuffed if you like. That
Yeah.
is absolutely fine. I'm happy with that. No one's done it yet. And you may be the first or you may not be. That's up to you. Right. So see, now I can bring that comedic. I'm still doing the opening meeting and I'm covering what I need to cover, but it's that, look, I'm I'm here with you on this journey. And then I'll lead them through the process of saying, all right, well, for this report that I've got to produce out the back of the audit, I need to pack this thing with some evidence, right? So I need your help.
Mm.
I need your help to do that. This is your report, not my report. I'm submitting this to the certification body on your behalf, but I need to wrap some funny language around it because that's what they need to see.
Yes.
So help me help you, and
I
let's have some
like
fun
that.
while we're here. And bang,
Yeah.
then we're into it. So
I
see, I can
like,
reframe
yeah.
the audit in the opening meeting, and it just sets the
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah. I really like that. I do personally use I need your help too, but um I never thought about, oh, the audit report. Well, it's their report. You're just putting it together for them. It's sort of like what we were discussing before. You sort of wrote this original article. We put it together in a format that we needed. That's the same with an audit. You're just putting their feedback, how they've helped you and explained what they do. You're putting it in an audit report format for them.
Exactly. It's their report.
Yeah,
They're paying for it. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm just here to put the language around it so that
that's
we
right.
can certify or recertify whatever the audit is, whatever the
Yeah,
outcome we're looking for is. But my job is to give them a report back that's
yeah, I love
theirs.
that. I love that. I have a question, maybe two. Thinking which one I'm going to ask first because one might lead into the other. This is
Ooh.
this is an auditor's brain working here.
Yeah, write it down and we'll come back to
I'm
that
thinking,
later. Yeah.
I don't want to lead him down a path. So, okay, I'm going to do this one first. You mentioned you want to give them value. So, what does value look like for the client, and how is an auditor giving value? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make it very clear from the start. I'm not here to consult.
Okay.
I'm not going to cross that line. That's not what I do. If you want that, that's a different thing, and I can introduce the client. I usually say this in the opening meeting. I can introduce you to someone who can be really helpful, but that's not why I'm here. Now, the difference between consulting and coaching and auditing, what do you know what the difference is? One's
I've
very
got my
different.
opinion, but share
Yeah.
yours.
There's
And
so
mentoring you could throw in there too.
mentoring, absolutely. Teaching is in the
Mm-hmm.
same kind of thing. So consulting that's out of the question, right? I'm not here to tell you what to do. That's not what we're doing here. Coaching, coaching is the art of asking questions. So if I'm consulting to you, I'll come in and say, right, we're going to do this, or we need to put this in, or we need to write this, or we need to have that. I'm telling you what to do. Coaching is, I'm not telling you anything. Actually, I'm just asking you the right questions. I'm supposing that you already have the answer. So you might be sitting there going, I don't know what to do next. Rather than sit there and consult and say, well, this is what we'll do next, coaching turns into, well, what could we do next? And then you can sort of use that beautiful question, which is the next step, isn't it? So the beautiful question to kind of move forward in a conversation. Auditing, how do we audit? We ask questions. And so the art of bringing value to an audit is by asking really thoughtful, well-crafted questions. And we'll go into that one in the next step.
Next one. Yeah.
But that's what value looks like. Value isn't you conform to the standards. That's not value. That's almost an expectation. Value is what's the thing they're getting out of it? What's the gold they're walking away with that lets them go, you know what? That was a good use of time and I'm happy I paid for it.
Yes.
And there's
Yes.
multiple ways it comes out in an audit scenario, whether it's an
Okay.
internal audit or an external audit or whatever. We're not just asking questions for the sake of asking questions or going through a thing for the sake of going through a thing. We're here to really try and find a way to improve. The
Yes.
last bit I'll
Yeah.
say to that there is there's an like the definition of quality now has evolved. It is not what it used to be. So I walked into organizations, many businesses now, and I'll ask a question like, what is quality? And a lot of people will say, oh, it's about documents, processes, systems, customer satisfaction, internal audit, your management review. They kind of just list what the standard talks about. But then I'll say, well, where does quality exist? Where do you find it? Because you can have all the best processes and documents on the planet, but if the customer's still not happy or having a great experience, then obviously the quality hasn't been impacted, right? So, the definition of quality and where you find quality is in the experience of the customer, not in satisfaction. It's the experience, which is a
I
higher kind
like
of
that.
frame. So being
Yes.
able to say, well, what does it mean? What are we actually chasing here? What's the thing that we're doing? What's the
Yes.
problem we're solving for our customer? What's the
Yes.
thing we're innovating or bringing to the market? What's your jam? Right. Now your
Yes.
quality has to be designed to deliver that, not just do your
Yes.
internal audits, management reviews. So really attaching it to a vision is really, really useful. And
Yeah.
it is totally acceptable in an audit from an auditor to translate the standard and sort of bring other meanings to what the requirements are saying. Because often customers will be sitting there, or clients or organizations will be sitting there going, I have no idea. I just
Yeah,
read this
that's right.
requirement, but what does that even mean, Basil?
What is it? Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah.
So it's acceptable to sit there and translate, which is another point of value. Because now you can go, well, it could also be looked at in this way. Bang.
Yes. Yeah. I like that customer experience because going back to the standard, like there's obviously a clause in there on customer satisfaction, which you said, well, it's more than just satisfaction. Yeah, it's the
Yep.
entire experience, isn't it?
I've got to
Before,
say,
during, and after, and ongoing.
absolutely. This is a huge point, and I'm writing a book on, and this has been one of the biggest drivers of the book, is because it customer satisfaction. It talks about customer satisfaction, but that's a terrible objective. Like we don't want that. We don't want customer satisfaction. That's an awful objective. The standards, what like the word standard means benchmark, average,
Yeah, that's right.
normal. The international standard is not written for an organization's success. It's too hard to write a document that's meant to serve every single organization on the planet about how to be successful. What is easy to do is write a document for every organization on the planet on how to not fail. So
Yes.
what the bare minimum for non-failure is. And that's what the international standard on 9001, I focus in on 9001, but that's what it is. It is the international benchmark for non-failure. And
Yes.
so customer satisfaction is the bare minimum. Now, sometimes I'll even, when I'm working with organizations, I don't do a lot in implementation for certification. I do a bit of consulting in, well, now you've got it, how do we make it better?
Yes.
So then I'll say, well, instead of trying to make customers satisfied, what if we build this management system so that we deliver an experience that has customers absolutely bloody euphoric, just on the rooftops, shouting out to the world, your name, go here, spend your money, right? What if we build it to deliver that instead? And if we fall short, they're still going to be pretty damn ecstatic or happy. If you aim for satisfaction and you fall just a bit short, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm.
dissatisfaction. So
Yes.
it's like when you shoot for the stars, you might land on the moon. Well, the moon's pretty good, but if the moon means dissatisfied,
Yeah.
we've just defeated the whole purpose of the thing in the
Yeah.
first place. So
No,
yeah,
I love that. And look, that's probably, there's a whole other topic on that, because I know with clients that I audit, like certification audits, there's a particular client that I've been working with, I think for 12 years, so like 4 cycles. And that's where they're at with their system. And this is a discussion I've had with them recently. It's like, yeah, you're conforming, but the things that they're putting in place now are mind-blowing, because they just love, it's a triple cert. They just love their system and what it's done for the business. Now they're just going the extra mile.
Yep.
And implementing these improvements. They know they don't need to meet the standards requirements, but they're just eager and keen to improve the experience, whether it's quality, environment, OH&S. That their whole business is just wrapped up, or this system is wrapped up in their business, and they're just going about what they're doing without realizing that they're overperforming. Is that the right word? But yeah, it's a high performance system now, and they don't even realize it, just because
no,
yeah. And it's so nice to see that people, they finally go, oh, yes. But
yeah.
as I said, that could be a whole other topic.
That
I'm
is a
pretty
whole
sure
other topic.
it
Absolutely.
is.
How do we use 9001 to actually 10x
Yeah.
the business? Which is what I have tagged on LinkedIn. It's not
Okay.
by the usual viewpoint. It's by understanding what quality it has become and what it is becoming
Yes.
moving forward. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a good
Fascinating.
other, yeah, that would be a good one to do. Okay. So I'm happy with that, I think, Kevin. I think you've covered the importance of the opening meeting. I loved how, you're taking the attention off yourself and, making them feel comfortable, essentially, as soon as you walk in the door. So that's really important. As auditors, we should also be picking up on people's body language and behaviours, and really take on board if they are nervous, anxious, and where, as auditors, we are in control of changing that response.
That's
I
right.
think that's, yeah. And thank you for sharing, your sort of opening meeting points as well. That will help everyone. So thanks for that. Next one, because you've got 4.
Mhm.
Right. The second step for a successful audit formula is ask beautiful questions. So you said that not all questions are created equal. Great questions don't just seek answers, they lead to more questions. I'm laughing because that's what I did with that question I asked you earlier. They lead to more questions, driving deeper insights and better understanding. Always end the opening meeting by asking, and you touched on this, if you can get anything at all, what would you really like to get out of this process? Then listen carefully and allow the discussion to unfold. So I'm just going to pick up a bit from that statement, Kevin, because I know you mentioned that in the first step. And I wrote down that point, which sort of led to that next question, because as soon as you said that, what do you want out of this? And you said, keep digging. And, when you get to that last point, that's really what they want out of it. My first thought was, how do we stop consulting? Yeah. And stop auditing. And you picked up on that when I asked that previous question, because when my first thought was, if I ask that question, I feel like, am I going to get stuck with them and they're going to ask me how to fix something? You don't find that?
No. So I framed that pretty clearly from the start. This is
Okay.
This is not to tell you what to do. I don't need to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. My job is to ask you the right question so that you can come up with your own answer. But that's what the audit is. Let's put that in an audit context. Here's the standard. My job is to ask you a question so that you can come up with the answer that then allows me to report conformance or non-conformance to this standard. I don't say that last bit, but that's what is going through my mind.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's what you said at the start of that point, a little bit of a contentious topic with some people, because people love that statement of there's no such thing as a dumb question. I have to look, yes, there is. There are so many dumb questions. It is unbelievable. Some questions should not see the light of day. There are dumb questions
What's a dumb
everywhere.
question?
A dumb question. So a dumb question is usually a question that ends in a very abrupt answer. So
Like a closed question?
almost like a closed question, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Context dependent on that one. But it's a question that doesn't really engage who you're speaking to, and it doesn't really help the person you're speaking to understand why you asked the question in the first place. So, example,
Okay.
the best example, if we put it in an audit scenario, let me pick a random requirement. Let's go to clause 4, right? So here's a dumb question. So let's pretend I'm auditing you. Here's the question. So Jackie, tell me a little bit about your interested parties and where you've identified their needs and expectations, and where you're using that information in your objective planning and your operational planning and control. What? That's not a
Sorry,
question.
what?
That's
Yeah,
not a
I don't
question.
understand what you're talking about, Kevin.
No.
What's an interested party? And you've asked me something about objectives at the same time. Yeah.
Dumb,
Yeah.
right? That I never, in an audit, actually, interestingly, in an audit, I never ever ask about interested parties. Never.
No.
Never. The conversation reveals them. They talk about them
Yes.
when you talk to them about their business. That's where I pick up the evidence. So I'll say, yeah, multiple interested parties were referred to in the whole audit, including suppliers, government, blah, 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 blah. That's the evidence right there. I'm looking for it real time. What I can't stand that kind of question. So when you get the auditors that walk in and they'll sort of line by line through the standards, wanting to see evidence for every single line item requirement, that firstly, that's disengaging for the client. They really, I haven't met one that enjoys that process. Secondly, they don't really understand how to get value out of that. It doesn't really mean anything to them. They're kind of just going through a process, which then promotes the whole, well, we're just going to prepare things for the sake of the auditor, not for the sake of our business. And when that is the outcome that's being achieved, then that is usually because of just not great questions.
No, that makes sense. And I see those questions right in front of me. All the time when I conduct training. I talk about using the language of the client. So, if I work with clients under my practice, like building their auditing or consulting careers, it's something I often say is, like, why are you talking about clause numbers to your workers? They do not understand what you are talking about, and there is no need to talk about what's in the standard whatsoever. They do not even need to know that they're doing something that is related to ISO 9001. They shouldn't know. So
I don't even pull the standards out. I don't even have the standards out anywhere. They're in my bag, but I'm not even going to give it any airtime, because this is about the business, not the standards.
Absolutely. And you said it before as well, Kevin, like, you're asking for their help to explain the processes, what they do. They know the business better than we do as the auditor. I always like saying that, because as you said, they know the answers. We don't know the answers. It's their business. Okay, we know the standards. And as you said before, you're just translating it in your head. Nobody else needs to know. So, okay, so that's what you mean by asking beautiful questions. And now I know what, a dumb question is. They do
Absolutely. Yeah.
exist.
Yeah, they exist all the time. They exist. But the
Mm,
the way you understand how a beautiful question has been asked is not from the question. Like I said in the newsletter article, it's not about the answer, it's about the next question. So a really
yes,
great question generates another really great question. And that is the
yes,
definition of a conversation, because you're then
yes,
in tandem with them, the client or whoever it is that you're talking to, you're sort of working with them through whatever it is that you're looking at. And sometimes and client dependent. So customer, you read the room, but I'll even lead with, look, I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to make sure that they're not dumb questions. But what I really need to happen here is, I mean, and look, if I'm talking to a trade business or something, I'll say, I know that there's a local pub down the road and they serve, what's your favorite beer? And they'll tell me their favorite Corona or something. And I'll say, all right, so all we're doing here is I just need to pretend that we're at a bar, we're having a sneaky beer, and I just need you to brag about your business for a bit. And I'm going to ask the questions because I'm curious and I want to know more, and I'm fascinated by what you do. But I just need you to brag for a bit, mate. Like, just
yeah,
let's have a couple of schooners while we're doing it, and then
yeah,
then that sort of sets the tempo again. And then they get
yeah,
into the conversation. You're asking questions. It's not an interrogation. It's not a tell me this or show me this or
yeah,
get me that. It's a take me through it, my friend. This is your business. Brag.
yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah, yeah. And do you find that when you give people that space, and because I've found this as well, most people actually get quite excited to share what they do because nobody's really asked them before. Like
Mm,
you're making it about them, and it's like, oh, really? Someone's interested in what I do and
mhm,
how I do it.
mm,
Yeah, and something I say, it's not like a job assessment. I don't know you know your job. I'm just looking at the process. Can you help me to understand it? And they go, oh, yeah, this is what we do, and they
mm.
get really excited.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you 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 know, and I'll add to that. You know what happens when someone asks you a question and it's not about you, it's not about what you do, but it's about what you are doing moving forward, what you see moving forward, who you are becoming. When you kind of get that beautiful question without being real weird about it, like
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
developmenty, but like,
Yeah.
if I'm working with an organization, I'll say, all right, we know that our market's this, and we know that our market has this problem, and we're the best in the market at solving that
Mm,
problem. But then do we know what the next problem the customer's having there? And have we got something in place to be able to offer them when that happens as well? And
yeah.
you can kind of almost sit on the same side of the table as them looking forward. And you're
Yes.
almost going to a visionary style question
Yes.
to get them to engage with what they're building and what their business is. And then from there, you can come back into the mechanics
Yes.
of what they're doing, which is
Yes.
which is where the requirements of the standard kind of sit. And so
Yes.
but it's a collaborative conversation, and all I'm
Yes.
doing is stoking that fire with really great, thoughtful questions. It's
Yeah.
like if I'm working with
Yeah.
you and I'll say, "Oh, geez, it seems like you're awfully busy. Like, geez, you got so many things going on. You got podcasts and you got
Mm-hmm.
you got this and that, your personal thing. Like, well, how do you stay on top of all that? How do you make sure you don't drop the ball?" Well, what am I asking about there? I'm asking about risk management. I'm asking about
That's right.
so I
Business
can
continuity,
absolutely.
transferable knowledge. And so I suppose you and I are both just translating that in our head, but that's exactly right.
That's it. Absolutely. That's a thoughtful
Yeah.
question. It's a nice
Yeah.
question, and it's one that customers, I find, clients, organizations, people just love answering, and that
Yeah.
is the most beautiful part about this whole process.
Yes. Yes. I love that. That's a great takeaway.
Mm,
Thank you. Think asking beautiful questions. Valuable dialogue, you
mm,
mentioned. Okay. All right. You happy with that second step?
I love it.
I think it's amazing what you've shared. Thank you. So the third step for a successful audit formula is to conduct a valuable audit. And you've sort of touched on this as well. Focus on the business, not just the standards. Okay, so a great audit goes beyond the checklist. I think we mentioned you're not just there to tick some boxes. It's about understanding the business and how it meets the standards. This approach not only helps in identifying areas of improvement, but also in making the audit a valuable experience for the client. So that goes back to my question earlier about, well, what is value? So you also mentioned that the best auditors don't just look for conformance or compliance, they look for value in the client's business operations. So I know we've already touched on this, and this is what naturally happens because everything feeds into the next, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There's nothing that sits in
Yeah.
silos. No.
So I suppose to recap, your first one was about the opening meeting.
Mhm.
And then the next one was about beautiful question. And the examples you've used naturally fed into that value and conducting a valuable audit that focuses on the business, not just the standards.
Yeah.
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 So can you wrap those three together?
Totally. Yeah. I've said for the first two, I was like, this is the most critical part of the whole thing. This third one, this is the most critical part of the whole thing. The whole thing's the most critical part of the whole thing. That's a really oddly relevant statement. And here's why. We call it a system, right? A system, a quality management system, a business management system, whatever. I don't even use the word quality in some settings. I just call it the business.
Yes.
And the reason why is because when you look at what a system actually is, so I've written many articles on systems thinking and understanding what a system actually is. It's not an IT platform or an application or a machine or a process or a document or whatever. Like they're all systems in their own right. But when we're talking about the management system, the word system has a Latin and a Greek root in its etymology. And what it refers to, when no matter which definition, which version of it you read, the thing that comes through the most in every single line you read, when you read about systems, is the word whole. It is a whole. A system is a whole comprising of many parts that work together to produce an outcome. That's what a system
I was
is.
gonna ask which whole, WHOLE or HOLE?
Spelt with a, well, yes, arguably you see some that probably HOLE, but look, yeah, it
Ah,
WHOLE. And so a system
yes.
is a whole. Now, if you take, for example, your body, right? Your body is a system. It's comprised of many
Mm-hmm.
parts that have to work together to produce an
Mm-hmm.
outcome, which is life in its essence. Now,
Yes.
if we so your body has a function, has a purpose, life, movement, etc. Now, if we were to remove, let's just say we removed your brain and put it on the table in front of you and asked it to think, would it be able to think?
No.
No. If we pulled your eyeballs out of your head and put them on the table in front of you, would they still see?
No.
Of course they wouldn't. If we cut your
Yeah.
arm off and put it on the table in front of you, would it still do things, grab things? No. So when
Yeah.
you remove a part from the whole,
Mm.
the part loses its functionality and loses its vision and loses its purpose. But then if I remove your brain out of your head, what happens to your whole
What?
body?
That's right. What
The
happens to the
whole
rest? Mm-hmm.
fails, right?
Yeah.
So a system is a whole that's comprised of many parts that work together to produce a result. Okay, not to go sciencey, but if we disassemble the system and look at it in individual elements and parts, we actually lose sight of the functionality of the whole. This is where this point now comes back in. We're here to audit a system. The system is the business. So we are here to audit the whole business. Now, when we're talking about quality or customer experience or whatever the case may be, operations play a part in that? Yep. Do the executive team play a part in that? Yep. Does the board play a part in that? They sure do. Does HR play a part in that? Sure do. Marketing? Yep. Finance? Absolutely. Everyone has to work together in this business in order for the business to produce its results. So to audit the business effectively, you've got to understand, firstly, this is a whole system that all works together. And so we need to understand that is everyone playing the part they need to play, and is it effective? But B, it's not just are they there, it's the interconnections between all of the parts that makes the
Yeah.
whole work. And the standard talks about that. It actually talks about that in
Yeah.
clause 4.
Inputs, outputs. Yeah.
It's the
And they're
interconnected
yeah.
growth. That's right. And so that's what that's referring to. So when you read clause 4, a lot of
Mm,
people just go to a SWOT and a PESTEL and whatever else. In a good, better, best, that's good. It's not better
yeah.
and it's not best. Understanding that the business as a whole has many parts that all have to work together, including all the documents and the processes and your IT and all the things, all have to work together to produce that result. So as an auditor, when you're looking at, okay, this is a business, this is what result it's needing to produce to solve the problem, serve the market, whatever the case may be, however it is that they measure success, this is what it's got to be able to produce. Right. What's the system that sits behind that in the business? And is everything lining up? And when you read the standard, it points to all the different areas in the business anyway. So conducting a
Absolutely.
valuable audit to kind of tie that all up is, yes, look at the individual bits, but we've got to make sure that when they all fit together, they work.
And that's still relevant. I'm sorry, I might be drilling down too much. It's how my brain's working at the moment. Is, like when the scope is quite narrow, like I have a client that, because you talk about the business as a whole is a system, but this particular client, their scope is just one part of the business. And then there's some shared services that interact with that scope. So in that, I actually find it challenging sometimes because there's these links, but as you said, it's not the whole business. It's
Mm.
yeah. So how do you handle that? Do you find that a challenge as well, or is it just me?
No, it's definitely, it comes up quite a bit, and that's why the scope is there. But now we're
Yeah.
potentially talking about a translation. So then I
Ah,
can sort of go
yes.
into so this is coming back into the first two steps. It was like, all right, well, what does quality actually mean here? And are we getting value
Mm-hmm.
from your quality investment? Is this
Yes.
actually helping? And if there was a way to be able to make it more valuable for you, how could we do it? And it's by making sure that we're encapsulating all of the things that influence the result, not just the certain,
Yes.
we're trying to limit the scope so that we make this audit as easy as possible. I actually think it's
Yes.
easier to not limit the scope at all.
Yes.
It's actually more difficult. It doesn't make as much
Yes.
sense. And commercially and culturally, the value you'll get
Mm-hmm.
from limiting that scope is actually lower. And so from a translation point of view, if there was more value on the table, would we explore that? Sure. And
Mm,
then, like again, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell the client to expand their scope, but it is very acceptable to translate the standard, translate what quality is into what they are doing to help them understand how to better utilize it and make
yeah.
most of their investment. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do find that it is a bit challenging, but sometimes there's a slight reframe or a slight translation, and when you go through that process, they kind of go, "That's actually a really good point." We're
Yeah.
probably leaving
Yeah.
value on the table.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. No, that helps with, my train of thought as well. It goes back, as you said, it goes back to that value that keeps popping up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about the standard, it's about the business. As long as we keep coming
Yes.
back to that point, everything
Yes.
else makes sense.
Yes. Yes. Love it. Okay. So that's the third point. There's four, I believe. So this is the fourth and final step. Okay. So you shared with us, Kevin, that the fourth and final step for a successful audit formula is closing the loop. So ensure the experience is memorable. So when it's time to wrap up the audit, you mentioned that clients usually care most about two things: the result and the findings. So you keep the closing meeting concise, you focus on the outcomes, ensure that the client feels valued. There's that word again. Frame non-conformances as opportunities for improvement, not just failures, and always revisit the client's initial concerns that you brought up in the opening meeting to confirm they've been addressed. I love that. That is that whole, it's sort of like with training. It's like, what are you here for? What do you want to get out of this training? You do ask it on day one. On the last day, it's like, okay, here's the sheet. Did we get this? Did we get this? Did we get this?
Perfect.
Yeah. I've never
Absolutely.
thought of that before as part of an audit.
Absolutely. Look, I heard a saying that every successful business is a loosely functioning disaster, right? So there is
Yes.
always something to talk about. There is always something to
Yes.
improve. There is always something that's causing a headache. That's the nature of business. Welcome to business.
Yes.
And look, I have a couple of my own, and I'm involved in mergers and acquisitions, and I'm involved in all sorts of different things in this whole business world. But I use 9001 as the framework to execute the whole entire thing. But I just read it in a very different way, as we've talked about here.
Yes.
When you're in that closing meeting, well, if you set the audit up in the opening meeting well enough by getting a bit of an agenda out of the client as to what's important to them, when you come back around in that closing meeting, yes, hey, we came across this finding, we saw this, and look, does the standard technically say this? Yes. Is that technically a non-conformance? Yep. But I want to make sure that you understand why we're raising it. I want to make sure that you're walking away with the understanding of, yeah, we're doing this, or we're going to try to implement this, or we're going to review this, and what the value of doing that. So, look, for example, you haven't done any internal audits, right? Firstly, can I just ask quickly, is that the right language? We don't have to call them internal audits. They're obviously, if you haven't done them, then there's not been any value in doing them. How could we make that process useful? What would that look like? And so see, now that's not consulting. That, yes, could be classed as more coaching, but it's actually more of a translation, because we don't have,
Yes.
sometimes you use the word internal audit, they go, I don't want to do that. But
Yes.
when you go, I was working with a client, not in an audit scenario, but we set up their internal audit as the how to crush the competitors check. That's what we called it, because they were a young 20-something-year-old,
Yeah.
10-person tech business that wanted to use 9001 as the framework. But the second you walk into there and go internal audit, they all look at you like you're an
Yes.
alien. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so
Doesn't align with the culture.
absolutely not. And it means nothing to them. So they're not going to do it. But if we can say, all right, we've got competitors out there, they're trying to crush us. So let's figure out how we make sure we cover our backside and then crush them in the process so that we win.
Yes.
Now you've got them engaged, and then you just do an internal audit. You just don't call it that. But it's the
No,
same
yeah.
process. So when you're
You're just looking at stuff.
exactly. So when you're presenting findings, there's potential there that there's an opportunity to translate something. So the client goes, "Oh, I never actually really thought of it in that light." Well, would that be more useful? So that's what the finding's going to be. But I want to make sure that there's a useful action out of it for you. We're not just doing it because the auditor said so. Which is a
Yes.
terrible reason to do anything for the auditor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's awful,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
but and then so presenting findings in that light is usually really, really helpful. You got to remember that you'll only ever be remembered for the last experience someone has of you. So you want to make sure you end on a high. You want to make sure you end on a yeah, look, I've got your back. I'm not here just to turn the burners on and walk out. I've got your back. If you've got any questions at all, I need you to call me straight away, ask
Yeah.
me the question, and I'll give you my feedback and thoughts. But I need you to understand what the value is for you. And if we don't understand
Yeah.
that, then maybe we need to sort of spend some time talking through that.
Right. Yeah.
And then finishing it off, on the, like I said, in the opening meeting, where you've gone, what would you love to walk away with? And they've said, oh, for example, yeah, look, our training process is just, no one seems to be doing them. We seem to be falling behind in our records all the time. Okay, well, maybe let's take a bit of a look at that. And then through the audit, yes, you're covering that area off. When you get to the closing meeting, now, like exactly like what you said, you pull it out and go, you talked about this in the opening meeting. Did we cover that off? Have
Hmm.
you got what you need for that? Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Right. We'll tick it off. Or they'll
Yeah.
say, oh, look, yeah, I don't think so. All right. Well, what do we need to do so that you feel comfortable ticking that off?
Yeah.
In some cases, I'll be sitting there going, we didn't cover that at all. I didn't even talk about that whatsoever. And then they sit there, and then the client goes, oh, I love it. Yeah, got so much out of that. I'm so clear with that now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just run with it. Yeah, sure. But yeah,
Yeah. Let
closing the
them
loop.
drive
Yeah,
it and identify their own value.
that's it. Close the loop. Bring it
Yeah.
back to, again, bring it back to the business, not the standard. I'll
Yes.
then go and translate everything that I've seen and everything that we've done and all the evidence. I'll go and translate that into a report, which 99% of companies out there don't really care about. Let's be very honest. The body of it
Yeah,
uh,
they just want to
doesn't
go
really.
straight to what do I have to do?
Exactly. They just want to
Yeah.
know, and if someone, you've got a quality manager who's got to debrief the executive team or whatever the case may be, they just want to know two things. Was it a successful result? Did we get through it?
Hmm.
And were there findings? If so, what are they?
Yeah,
That's it. So
I agree.
keep it there, keep it about the business, not about the standard. And that's usually how I find you can really
Yeah.
wrap it up. And usually I'll throw in a cheeky kind of, you know, I asked you on day one to let's just pretend we're at a bar having a few schooners. Well, I reckon we've probably had 12 schooners through this whole audit. And look, this is what we came up with. And you're into it. Now, yeah, look, read the
Yeah.
room, and it's context dependent on how much rapport you've got. But that's personality coming out. That's energy coming
Yes.
out. That's
Yes.
relatability coming out. That's rapport
Absolutely.
coming out. And
Mhm.
those are really key elements of conducting a really solid audit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, it's something I've talked about in the past as well. As auditors, it's not about our technical knowledge in the ISO standard. We can know it like the back of our hands. It's actually our personal behaviors
Mm,
that that grow our career, that build that rapport. Like that's key to being successful. And you've
absolutely.
you've obviously found that.
Look, Jackie, I say this very, very humbly and very, very unarrogantly, but I was reflecting when I was writing that long article. I was reflecting back, and I had this realization that just before it, that there are a lot of consultants around the country who, because I actively do certification audits on a contract basis, but there are consultants around the country in a few different states who go to a certification body that they know I'm auditing at, and they'll specifically ask for me to be the auditor, and it's usually on a take it or leave it basis. So there's just because they know the client's going to get a good audit. So we don't muck around in these things. We actually get a good job done, and I'm very thorough in what I do. That's the engineering kind of background coming out of me. But
Yes, true.
but the client's going to get a good experience. They're going to get value out of it.
Yeah.
And so that's who we want, because we know that they're going
Yes.
to they it's there's value on the table.
Yes.
There's also organizations out there, and I'm not sure how, but there's organizations out there that have switched asking for me. I've never met them. I've never talked to them in my life. I don't know who they are, but someone's obviously said something about, hey, this
Hmm.
guy's really damn good, and we get huge amounts of value. We love the audit process. We love working with him. You should go and get him as your auditor. And that happens quite a lot. And so, like, again, humbly and unarrogantly, there's a formula to being able to do that. And
Yes.
so that article that I wrote was just trying to get out, well, how do I do it? Because I don't want to, be the only like person that that's. I want to make sure every single auditor in the country has that kind of formula. And if it enhances one area of one particular auditor's repertoire of audit skills, then that, to me, that's fantastic. And that's why I
Yeah.
think we align a lot, because I think we see it the same sort of way. So
Absolutely. And I was thinking, like, I have a lot of the same, attributes and personal behaviors that you do, but where I'm lacking is I never actually put a term or a word to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's maybe some of us can do it more naturally than others. And for me, I know there's a lot of things I do, and I just think, oh, doesn't everyone do that? And I don't realize, there's a name for it, like beautiful questions. Like, oh, okay, that's so, I take my hat off to you, Kevin, for actually sitting back and looking and dissecting the process that you go through, because it's, we work in such an objective world, evidence-based world, and these sort of points can be a little bit sort of more subjective, or we could go down that it's not as clear as, oh, here's what the standard says, this is what we're doing. So I take my hat off to you for being able to really dissect what these steps are and what they mean, because they are really valuable. One, to put a name to, or words to, and two, to write about and share, because I'm exactly the same as you. I want everyone to go up this path and be as passionate and excited and enjoy what they're doing as much as we do. So by you doing this, you've opened it up for others to go, oh, really? Oh, that's what it is.
absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you
Absolutely,
so
and that's why
much.
I'm writing the book. It's not to be. It's not. I don't really care about a title like author or whatever. It's more. I think this industry is on the move, and there's been plenty of ordinary experiences, but now
Yes.
we've got an opportunity to really shape this industry
Love
to be
it.
hugely valuable and highly engaged moving forward. And ISO certification is one way to do that. And we've got this opportunity now. So it's being able to sort of put this in front of in front of what we're looking at and go, if I can do it, you can do it. And when we all do it, everyone is all the much better. So that's the most important thing to me. And that's why I love doing this.
Yes.
And that's why I go through
Yes.
all this
Yes.
stuff.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. It sort of leads to, oh, before I close out and recap on your 4 audit success points, is there anything you want to add?
That last point probably covers it off. I think auditors, we have a responsibility to make sure, and I just focus in on Australia, right? Let's focus in on our backyard for a second. But we have a responsibility to play our part in making sure that Australian commerce, Australian business is strong, it's healthy, it's viable, it's economically uh, sound, it makes sense for what we're doing, for who we're becoming as a nation, as a country. Businesses have a role to play in that. And as auditors, we have a role and a responsibility in playing our part in that as well. There's no shortage of competitors, private equity, and all these other like big firms outside of Australia who are willing to come in and swallow up Australian businesses, which is good for some, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's counterproductive in other ways. But as long as we're making sure that we're doing the right thing and we're building strong businesses, we're building a strong culture, and that we're viable as a nation moving forward, that's huge. Now that's the visionary speak. How we do that is through things like this. So, like I
Yes.
said, if there's anything that we can sort of share, if there's ways that we can improve, that's the game of quality, right? To improve. But
Yeah.
if there's anything we can do to bring that journey along and make it solid, make it better than what it was and what it has been in the past, then I think we've got a responsibility to fulfill that.
I love that. And it's, you've really opened up and made me realize, the important roles that we play and how exciting it is as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Kevin.
What a conversation, though.
I
mean, we did well. We contained it. Look.
We did. We did. I'm just going to finish it off. We actually did really well because we can normally talk for hours. So I'm going to close off now and recap for everyone listening. So just to recap, the successful audit formula that Kevin shared with us covered nailing the opening meeting, asking beautiful questions, conducting a valuable audit, and closing the loop. And when we discussed all of those 4 things, they all sort of fed into each other. So if you're just coming in at the end, go back and start from the beginning because you'll see how they all feed together. So as always, I'd like to close with stay curious and always lead the standard. By staying curious and leading the standard, you'll continually find new opportunities for growth and excellence in your ISO career. It actually wraps up nicely with what you said. So my last bit then, just to formally wrap this up. So today's episode on successful audit formula is a wrap. Thank you, Kevin. We hope you found our discussion valuable. I certainly did. Remember to join us next week where we'll be discussing a brand new topic, balancing the past and present, how static records and living records drive better decisions. So until next time, keep leading the standard and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us once again as we lead the standard. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast for more episodes just like this. And don't forget to leave a review if you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you're already an ATOL student, remember participating in live Q&A sessions just like this is one of the exclusive perks of your enrolment. And if you're not already a student, join us at our website www.auditortrainingonline.com to learn more about our courses and how you can start making a difference in your career in ISO management system standards. So join us again next week as we not just meet the standards, but we lead them.